Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Pillars of LARP Education Class 1. This is going to be our first seminar that we are doing online. Hopefully we'll be able to do more of these for our community as well as many other communities who are working with Vampire LARP inside of By Night Studios. This class is very much about getting away with it and surviving the death of your enemies. A lot of PvP comes into play. A lot of people try to find the way to take out their enemies. Getting that done in BNS gets harder and harder compared to old MET. And we're going to kind of break down some key ways to do that. And everyone who is currently on the Twitch chat, they can ask questions in between. It's about a 16-second delay, but I'll answer them as quickly as I can into this message. Also, I have access to show the book right here, so if people have questions about a mechanical ruling and how things are done to do the best method to aggress against people, we're going to try to get all those down for you too. Okay? So let's get started. The first thing we're going to be bringing up is some basic rules that By Night Studios has done with dealing with PvP. The entirety of the nature of By Night Studios is trying to push down stronger RP and having less fear of player death. They don't want player death to be non-existent, but they want to make it that it takes greater and greater effort to do it. It's not going to be some lazy people who just have a lot of traits take people out. It's always going to be a plan. Now, one of the key things they've done for that is they made a lockdown on mass combat. If you are a humanoid-sized creature, there's only going to be 2 physical challenges against you, 1 mental and 1 social. And you can only aggress against 1. So if you do have 4 people there who are ready to keep hitting you with different types of powers, you're going to keep losing willpower, you're going to keep having a problem, but you're going to have at least enough time with the reduction of the way that damage is that you'll at least not feel that you died before you thought. Now, staking and incapacitated is one of those particular rules that kind of takes the flavor out of being a vampire and completely weakens the nature of hunters. You already have to nearly have the person completely under your control by knocking them to the incapacitated health level before you can begin to stake them. And you can only stake them with objects that have the wooden trait, and if they have a staking capability, it just gives you the ability to do it without a willpower. The fact that they're making it maneuver-based, the fact that they're doing all these other things, I have not seen a staking occur where they could not have easily just knocked the person into torpor. Now, when you take out ability retest, which was the old method, and you go to willpower retests, you're locking down the aggression someone can maximum do because defense and aggression is now under the exact same types of retests. So if you're aggressing against people, you want to make sure you're letting tests go through, even if you would like to win, just because you need to use those willpower to make sure that the big ones kick over. Now, blood for the challenge, not the turn, goes into a concept that if I'm a vampire and I spend blood to increase my physical traits, I only get to spend it for the challenge. So if I'm attacking you, I only get it on that one particular group of throws. I don't get it on the attack and the defense, or possibly every celerity round. They locked it down to the individual challenge. So spending blood becomes less and less valuable. Because if you're going to be getting hit for only 1 or 2 traits, it's normally going to be better to just test along. If you win, you don't take any penalty. If you lose, healing is cheaper than blood for challenge. Now, the Camarilla loses a lot of value in killing other vampires. The fact that Diablerie can only occur once a year in a Camarilla genre makes it that the destruction of your enemies is unimportant. It's just as easily to knock them into torpor and put them in a basement somewhere. You're going to lose maybe 1 humanity, maybe you'll get a test, versus you Diablerize the guy, you're at risk of being found for the Diablerie, and you can't even do it consistently. In the old method, you could capture 5 or 6 people, do what you need to do, and then you might have the strength to actually survive challenges against you. The fact you're only stepping up a little is painful. And just to kind of elaborate on this, the fact of if you go from Neonate to Ancilla, you have to pay back all the XP of your cheaper abilities and your cheaper backgrounds makes gaining power and generation something most people who are playing neonates not want to do. Now, they've also made a lot more lower generations in the grand scheme of the game. The original MET, the original tabletop, you started at 13th gen. Every point you spent in the background, it went down 1 until you got all the way to 8th. The fact that people who are spending 5 points in their backgrounds now are ancients. These are truly powerful elders. It makes it that you can just start spending blood every turn incredibly, and that lets you then start healing with these huge blood pools. And it's important to think, if you are an elder, it's better to lose some tests if the damage is normal. Don't lose the willpower, spend a few blood, you're good to go. If it's aggravated, you can kind of make those choices, but taking the damage is so much more advantageous in BNS because they want people to die less. And lastly, the exceptional is killed by retests most of the time. If you're physically assaulting people, most exceptionals add a damage, if not more, with disciplines. The moment that there is a retest and the other person does anything, you're not really going to get the exceptional if they tie it or if they win it on the second. And the fact that that takes out so many of the exceptionals that can occur, you're almost always limited to base damage unless you have the additions to a gun that would, like, let's say you like deadly would allow you to be able to, actually it's not deadly, it is brutal. Brutal is the one that lets you still maintain exceptionals even after retests. Now, let's go to always play to your strengths. Every single good character is a specialist, and it's really important you begin to understand where you're good at. If you want to actually aggress in PvP and you're not playing a physical character, there's nothing wrong with that. You can still succeed, you can still get all of your goals done, anyone who bothers you, you can still get removed. But you need to understand how you're going to do that. And if you're not a super physical character, going against a physical character, you're going to lose every time, all the time. Now, figuring out your foes. If you know that your enemy is a much stronger physical person than you are, you're going to want to make sure that you never challenge them in that physical arena. Send them off to go do physical stuff, manipulate them to your heart's content, make them a pariah of the court. Those are all wonderful things, but never get into a situation where it's physical and physical. And this gets very hard in the Sabbat, where you're always worried about anonymity, can answer any situation. If you're one of those social or mental characters in the Sabbat, you need to create a secondary layer of your enemies are your friends, so you can manipulate them into darker situations. And the next part about being a specialist is to understand your allies. If you have 5 friends who are great combatants, you're going to want to be able to push that instead of you always in the front getting chewed up. So find people who can work in every department, find people who cover up your flaws, and you'll be able to be really good at taking out other people. Now, in-game and out-of-game strengths really matter. If you're a particularly timid person and you still have incredible aggressions to someone, trying to do public speaking in that particular way and rallying people to you is going to be very difficult. People like that, if you don't feel particularly confident in public speaking, then you should scheme. You should go and you should try to kind of get connections to people, make these little sideways deals, and you'll be able to get a little bit farther. But again, if you're not skilled in this and you're now trying to play in a PvP arena, that's rough. Use those moments where you stretch yourself in a very role-playing aspect where you're not trying to aggress against people, but in a PvP environment, everyone's using natural talents, and you should use yours. Now, the next kind of natural talent that is really powerful is confrontational. If you can go over to someone and you can express an intensity and a connection to an confidence, you'll be able to make that person second guess their own actions. Whether it's in character, they will have that moment because you're showing a certain level of confidence. And that confidence you need to just build up. It's a skill that you try to learn naturally in roleplay. Like when I originally started, I was not the absolutely most confident person, but the more and more I kind of pushed in my roleplay, the more and more I was able to kind of have that confidence that I was likely to succeed. Now, the last trait, which is really important to learn, is being a people pleaser. Because in all of these societies, it is such a situation where by yourself you're completely useless. With your group or your pack or your posse or your coterie, you're unbeatable. And by pleasing the people that you can work with ideologically and get them against those that you can't, you're always going to go very much farther. Now, know your traits and how to manipulate them. If you're a social dynamo, you should push yourself towards more social merits. You should try to grab those leaderships. You should understand if you're a dominate guy, you're always thinking of that dominate pool and how to best people. For your first easily 30-40 XP, you're probably going to want to guarantee you're capped on traits for the things you want to focus on. If you're, let's say, a Ventru with a little bit of presence and a little bit of a dominate, it's more advantageous to get that social to 10 and that mental to 10 and then decide which one you want to put your generation points in than it is to buy a lot of disciplines that you'll never succeed the tests on, or buy a lot of abilities that's just going to be a much more expensive down the line, while attributes are always the same points consistently. Now, the last thing about strengths is if you aggress against someone, they have to die. You have to have a complete, absolute moment where these people aren't going to aggress against you in the future. If you agitate someone and they come back, they now know you're against them. They now have a concept of your strengths, and they're going to use these tactics to go against you. We're going to bring up finally finishing people a little bit later on. Now, the physical side of things. Most people think, I'm going to attack people, I'm going to beat them up physically, I'm going to take them out physically. While it is the most easy kind of final way to do things, we're going to show very easily that it is not the only path. Now, if you want to aggress against another player and you are going to try to knock them into torpor, knock them into incapacitation, and you don't have tons and tons of combat disciplines, you do guns. Guns in BNS are so overpowered in comparison to all of Revised, all of MET. You're able to do so much, it's nearly your supernaturals. And I think they maybe try to make some equalization for hunters maybe in this. I don't know why guns are so powerful, but while they are, until there's a revision of BNS, use it to your best content, your best ability. Now, the real powers of guns are 3 categories of bonuses. One is the spread automatic bonus. Now, if you and another person, you can naturally only aggress against one person at a time. If you have any spread or automatic weapon, you're aggressing against 3 people who are nearby. Spread, they can step a little farther. No, spread, they have to be very close. Automatic, they can step a little farther. The fact that you're able just to throw that much damage out there that quickly is going to be very advantageous. And you can begin to start hopping things around. So let's say there are 3 bad guys and 3 good guys on your side. You automatically, from the start, you can have 2 people gun down all of them, and the other just add a trait, other one just add an ability. The moment they start to spread out, you have the 3rd guy still there to be able to maintain the damage. And damage per turn is the only way to take out anyone in BNS. It's constant erosion. Now, knockback. Now, knockback is so incredibly overpowered. I believe there had to be some failure of playtest, or there had to be some line that reduced it that was taken out in final editing. You're pushing back the person 2 steps if they have a stamina focus. If they don't have a stamina focus, they're on the ground and are unable to aggress. Because the mechanic to get up says you have to be using a step beyond your simples, they have to take a complex action to even stand. And that means no discipline use aggressively. All these other things are just going to start wiping away. Now, the fact that I've already shown you how utterly amazing that is, it doesn't have a range requirement. You can be 100 feet away, and mechanically, you are still knocking people down. They can't get up. If they can get up and they actually have a stamina focus, or they have their fortitude, or they have some type of armor, they're still taking 2 steps back. They're going to be forced to flee because they'll never get to you. And a few people with these things, or that with celerity, even at mid-range, becomes incredibly overpowered. Especially if you feel the guy's actually wanting to aggress against you. It is the best tool in monomacies. And if you're ever in a situation where you get to kind of control the monomacies, no shotguns is a strong start. Now, while knockback is particularly deadly even at mid to long range is outlandish. It actually expresses that you're able to be, I think the phrase is, a half a mile away. A half a mile, you can start grinding down on a person. And the only weapon with it currently listed has deadly. So you're getting +5 on there. You're able to kind of maintain this kind of like just pure damage output. And even if you just get a guy as they're walking to their car, you get 20, 30 feet on each side, the person has really no chance statistically to survive. They'll have to win consistent tests. They'll have to keep overcoming it. A person with cells just getting more steps, they're still taking the shots. You're hoping really for fortitude is the only way to cancel this, but fortitude is one of the rarest disciplines, as only Gangrel and then Venture have it, and long range is the kind of cheesier way to do it because they don't even really know who's killing them. With knockback, most storytellers are going to at least have you be in line of sight. Long range, even if they see you without auspex or you're already in a sniper's nest, they're seeing a muzzle flash, and it's particularly overwhelming. Now, there is one thing that is not listed absolutely in the book. I've never translated anything that says it this way, but there is a note that it has on long range. It says weapons with the long range quality cannot possess the spread ability. It doesn't say it can't possess the automatic ability. Completely, absolutely, some game somewhere is going to have a person who has some type of Gatling gun or some type of automatic rifle where they are going to have automatic and long range. And that is just an incredibly deadly combo if anyone ever lets you take it. Okay? Now, while the abilities are pretty great, let's also go to the aspect that 2 damage. Okay. Now, Acquire. A prone character may use a simple action to stand up and move 1 step. And they have to move 1 step. They get 1 step rather than need 1 step on a simple. Okay, let's look that up. 280. When I read it last time, it was different, but I'd much rather us have the answer here. 251, 330, 304, 280. Okay. And we are at 281. Let's go to 280. Unarmed attack, firearms attack. It is not knockout. It is not grapple. Knockdown. Here we go. If you succeed in a knockdown attack, your opponent takes 1 less damage, minimum 1, and ends on the ground. See rules for prone characters. While prone, your opponent may use the action to crawl, may use an action A prone character can use a simple action to stand up, and it's like, see, this is very vague. Why don't they call that one a simple action? While prone, an opponent may use a simple action to crawl one step. A prone character can use a simple action to stand up and move one step. So, under that, it's okay. Even still, let's say that they don't lose their simple. They're only moving one step. You're pushing them down 2. If you're pushing them down 2 and they're only gaining 1, they're still never catching up to you. So even at 6 steps, a person who does not have a stamina focus is just gone. Because every turn they try to get up, they're being pushed. They could do their complex for 3 and try to keep moving forward, but statistically, it's still an incredibly powerful weapon. Prone is also on 227, but exactly same rule. Okay, so the person is not completely knocked down, paralyzed, but that distance alone, the fact that you can do that from anything more theoretically than a mile, let's presume though that a good storyteller is having at least be line of sight. Every experience that I've had with shotguns, whether the mechanic was 90% of the time I never even did knockdown, because we all felt it was the 2 steps, and then when you actually read it, it actually said it was pushed down unless they had stamina, so we always let people just get the 2 steps. Having knockdown there is just taking away people's simples and keeping them low. So either way, very strong weapon. Now, the 2 damage. Let's hop back to that. Now, the fact that the base weapons are 2 damage without you pulling away reductions from knockdowns and things like that, you're going to be causing statistically more damage every turn than you would be punching without disciplines. And the fact that you can just have your guy standing next to you with just even accurate handguns and just keep gunning are going to consistently cause more. When you now think about the spread in the automatic, you're going it to a group of people, you're causing higher levels of damage. With long range, you're still causing higher levels of damage than you would up close without disciplines. Now, how to defend versus guns. The number one thing to defend against guns is always be near a point of cover. If they lose line of sight, they need to move. If they're in a situation, well, even cover could be, I'm going to be completely backed by this guy, the other guy's going to take my attack with the defense rules. If you have some good celerity, you can try to jump behind objects. Now, if you're an incredibly powerful, aggressive character, you can also close range. Because when you get really, really close, you're then going to be able to use your skills. And if they're a mental-based attacker, you're going to be able to kind of minimize that. Line of sight breaks are hard to do even in disciplines. You could try a semistry, you could try an obfuscate, you can try an obtenebrate, but all of these particular things are so easily beat down by auspex. Any sniper worth their snuff's got to take a few levels of auspex just to cut through those things very quickly. So, guns are powerful. Be aware of them. Try to keep people around you who have guns and people who don't like you not to have guns. Now, let's go into melee and powers. There we go. Aggravated damage is king. If you're able to put out aggravated damage and that guy does not have fortitude, things are going to keep getting worse for that guy. It also allows you to eventually do the final death strikes without having to wait an exorbitant amount of time. Aggravated damage should be a focus if you're going to be a physical combatant where you're going to be up in the bit. You should be moving that way. Whether it's a burning wrath, whether it is a hand of flame, whether it is a wolf claw, you should be moving towards the aggravated damage range if you're expecting to be killing PCs with melee damage. Now, fair escapes. the most annoying thing if you're a melee damage person is the fair escape mechanic, because all they have to do is be immune to challenges for a certain amount of time. If you have nothing ranged and they're running away and you can't catch them, even if you would statistically stay up with them, they are going to get a fair escape rule because no challenge can be presented against them. So even if you're a melee combat king, even if you have magic swords or you have whatever, you still keep that handgun in your back pocket just to shoot at a distant guy to make sure they can't fair escape. If you have a ranged power that is physical, that's wonderful, but really kind of make sure that you're able to maintain challenges on them even while they're leaving. Okay? Now the last part we kind of touched a little is controlling the bid. If you know someone is a mental firearms person and they're going around gunning down people, owning the streets, you're going to want to keep that range up close. The moment you get up close, all their weakened traits are going to be your advantage. Yes, they'll still be able to shoot you with mentals, and yes, they'll still go first on initiative. But the fact that their now defense is so weak, you're going to be able to just go like, I'm going to physically rip the gun out of your hand, or I'm going to destroy the gun. And you're going to keep minimizing their abilities more and more and more. Okay? Now, next, the social side of things. While it's very wonderful and action-packed to beat people up and take them all out that way, really the most powerful way to get rid of people is socially. If you have gaggles and gaggles of status and they have nothing, you should be able to fairly easily and fairly quickly get boons, value, and other situations and take it to their leadership. Take it to a prince, take it to an archbishop, take it to an archon. And you go to those people and you're like, I'm important, that guy isn't, this guy's a problem to the sector, he did something crazy. And you normally can get people very gently removed from domains for remarkably little boon work if you're a very powerful social person. And you may have no physical strengths and this guy's going to murder you the second you walk out of Elysium. Having that power over these key people who allow people to be in the city is going to give you the upper hand well above anyone who's going to be just super combative every moment. Now, powers. Presence. Presence has a few key ones that are really important. Awe always brings their attention to you. It lets you do a lot of other powers you may need to do, and it just keeps that kind of perpetuation. Now, entrancement is great for non-aggressive. If you know someone's coming at you and stuff is getting terrible, you entrance, you're going to be okay against that particular target. It's great for taking out bodyguards. It's great for doing other things, but the moment you really start that aggression, entrancement's going to drop. Now, summon is nice that you bring people to fights, but you have to still win the fights. And if they know it's a suicide, they don't have to go. Majesty is incredibly good, but I've never seen it done as an aggression. Everyone who has Majesty feels they're going to do really great at, they drop their Majesty, everyone around them is not going to attack them, and everything's going to be great. And it's a feeling from the old MET days. The real power of Majesty now is actually aggressions. Because I have to aggress against that person, I believe. Let me actually hop it up so we can read the exact line all together. So we go Majesty, and here you are. And anyone who wishes an attack to be rude must make an opposing challenge versus their social attribute. Now, this is going to stop all their bodyguards, all their people who are coming against you. If they're trapped in it, they have to be respectful and courteous, even if you leave. Okay? Now, here's where the magic comes into play. If you attack an individual affected by your Majesty, or they use a power on the individual, your Majesty immediately breaks for that person. She is rendered immune to Majesty for the next hour, and they would treat you normally, even attacking you as they see fit. This breaking Majesty only affects the specific individual, Others in the area who are affected by your majesty are not freed simply by witnessing your aggression towards their friend. This is the power. You walk up, you win half the tests, less than half the tests, and you go attack the person you want to attack, all those other people can't help. It is the quickest, fastest way to stop aggressions against you when you're aggressing. Every other situation, people are going to fight back. This one just stops it. Okay? Now, dementation. Dementation has a few particularly wily tricks. Normally, by the time we kind of get into haunting, we already start knocking down their aggressions. So all their attacks are -1. We can make a -3 with an exceptional. Now, when you get to Voice of Madness, you're already at this situation where people are going to start getting derangement traits. That's nice to kind of make them socially aggressed against. But now, Total Insanity is where we start having our fun. Now, none of these are going to really overwhelm you to aggress against someone. What these are going to do is it's going to make their responses so incredibly weak. Your people and your team and your combatants, because you're the social guy, the guys that should be aggressing are never going to take damage back. This confusion at -5 to all attack pools is incredibly amazing. If you're... yeah, Total Insanity is where we begin to have fun. Now, even if you just want to knock a person out of the fight, just like Majesty, you could do Fugue, you could do Fear. It allows you to remove people who you don't want to deal with. Because you always have to think about, what am I good at, what are my enemies good at, and how can I win those kind of situations. If I'm going against the Bruja with tons and tons of physical traits and Burning Wrath and all the celerity and all the potence, and he has his gangrel friends to teach him fortitude, and I'm never going to touch him in the physical domain. My goal is to get him from aggressing against my friends. And these dementation powers, having a straight, utter focus and a takeout is really powerful. Presence is almost not as great, because even if I manage to see the whole room, he can still be drug out by his friends. You hit a guy with some insanities and stuff like that, aggressions against them is still going to be valid. Okay? Now, soft skills. If you have a character with a lot of social traits, you can play as a very sociable person. And those sociable kind of situations... oh, yes, and the focus on hunting and Total Insanity takes out wits bonuses. So if you have a wits-based mental shooter, you can just snap them with that and then have them kind of wonder why they didn't buy any physical traits. Now, soft skills. If you're playing a social character, you can really use these. If you're not playing a social character, if you're not playing a character that is particularly manipulative, you're kind of stretching the level of what is in-game versus out-of-game. One of the most powerful tools you will ever have as a character who is sociable is you walk up and you find board players. The moment you find the player who's not being entertained by their plot, they're willing to do your plot. And you just walk up and you're like, hey, buddy, what do you do good in the city? And they're going to be like, oh, this is my specialty, but, I haven't been able to do X, Y, and Z. And you're going to be like, oh, yeah, hey, buddy, well, I have these goals and these ambitions and these dreams, and I think it'd be really helpful if you got to do some of that stuff with me. And as long as the player is properly bored and the staff hasn't been paying attention to that guy, you're going to be able to get that person on your side to be enter into your plot. You'll eventually have to pay them off or have them killed for some other reason. But at the end of the day, you're going to gain all the people you need who are good at what you're bad at. Okay? Now, political framing. You're going to be in a lot of situations where a guy never messes up. A guy is never a problem. He's never really being enough of a downright fuck up that you can have the court kill him or exile him. Or in an S spot have monomacies chosen against him because they hate him or they wildland him or whatever. If you're never going to have your enemy make a problem, you can start framing the situation if you're sociable enough. You can go around and you can be like, hey, you know what, I heard that guy, I heard he was friendly to Lillian's. And they're going to come back and say, well, we spoke to him and he wasn't friendly to Lillian's. Oh, are you sure you weren't dominated? Maybe he manipulated you. Hey, I have dominate. I can see if you've been manipulated. Oh, you can? Oh, yes, you were very manipulated. Cutting those lines of making people completely lack trust in your enemies is going to be really important. And the last kind of major social skill is the double cross. Everyone who is your ally, everyone who you're connected to, everyone who you're building up time with has their own goals and their own ambitions. No one is playing the ostentatious toady for 2 years. And if you can't pay them enough, you have to get rid of them. And a social character can do that great get rid ofs. Oh, you were working for me and everything was going great. Or, oh, you wanted me to help you with your thing, so I gave you some information. And that was where you got met by the Sabbat and killed. Or, oh, you didn't kill the Sabbat, but you didn't tell the prince about it. Oh, they must be supporting the Sabbat. And those twists are going to be enough that while you may burn that bridge, you're burning the bridge by lighting them on fire. And you'll gradually erode those who owe you too much, and you'll keep those who are willing to work for your ideas and your ideology. Okay. Now, let's go to the mental. Okay, wits-based firearms. We talked about it a lot. If you're an incredibly mental character, you got a lot of mental disciplines, and you don't need your focus in another one of the mental focuses, take wits. It's always quick, it's always easy, it lets make sure that you're shooting unless you get demontated or whatever, and it facilitates what's kind of going on there. Now, disciplines. The most powerful mental discipline, as everyone seems to know, is blood magic. If you're an Assamite or Setite, a Shimase, a Tremere, you have, or you bought the merit, you have access to mental-based attacks that are, we're on mental side of things, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. There you go. Sorry about that, and I'm really glad we had the chats for that. If you have a mental-based power, blood magic is unbeatable. You're going to always be able to throw aggravated damage. You're always going to be able to do blood thefts. Even if you're in the most straightest laced BNS that there's ever been written, and you only get 2 if you're an independent and 1 if you're a Tremere for every merit you buy, these are still just incredibly powerful things. BNS 2 is going to have more thaumaturgies and more necromancies, so at the end of the day, if you're a blood magic user, you're the closest the game allows you to be as a specialist. You get a little bit of mental control, you get a little bit of control, and you normally get a little bit of aggression. Now, dominate. Dominate is the power that everyone seems to forget trumps so many things. In a simple challenge, I send you to sleep. In a simple challenge, I send you to run. In a simple challenge, I have you defend me. These particular wins allows me to do so much in such a few tests. It's the idea of how Ventru kind of control all these places. They have no great celerity, they have no whatever, but they're able to dominate these aggravated damage juggernauts that are in their court if they try to aggress against them. And there's like Ventru merit that makes all mortals auto-fail dominates against you. There's a lot of power in dominate, and I feel people don't really emphasize it enough because they're such mental or social characters. They don't want to be aggressive and they don't want to attack. And dominate is that attack. It is the bite. Now, soft skills for mental people. Quote-unquote advice. The idea of quote-unquote advice is if you constantly go to people and you tell them things that are going to succeed, they're going to believe that everything you say will succeed. And I'm shocked sometimes how quickly this happens. With a few conversations of just you even emphasizing your lore to someone is enough seemingly that they believe, oh yeah, it's a great idea, we should go attack the Sabbat with these guys. And curving your advice constantly for your advantage is never good. You always do it like a 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 5, because you seem then much more subservient while you're still getting paid on the back end. And it kind of dovetails right into the next section of value. Even if you don't have advice, let's say you're just a massive lore master or you're a thaumaturgist or whatever, mental characters have to show they have value to physical characters or social characters. Because they can't beat them up, they can't socially walk them out of court, they have to show that they have some particular value, whether it's true or not. A great example is become the question guy, become the person who vets everyone who comes into the city, whether you have the disciplines or not. If someone gets through, you just be like, oh, his skills were just too good. If no one gets through, you're going to be seen as the greatest valuable person, even if you didn't have telepathy or dominate or anything like that. And the last one is planning. There's a fine line between the nature of you're a brilliant person and your character's 3 mentals. Personally, for myself, if I'm not playing a character with at least 5 mentals, I don't plan and plot and think about things for hours on end before I initiate it. And allowing yourself to kind of use your entire mental skills when you're a higher mental character really gives you a lot of advantage then, instead of you being limited by the nature of the role play that your character is only so intelligent. Now, most important rules. Number 1, don't fail. If you play your cards out that you want to kill someone, you want to get them out of the city, you want to have them diablerized by an archbishop, you can't play your hand and not win. Here's a great example. In Pillars of Salt, the Harpy of Los Angeles, Judith De Leon, really, really, really wanted to take out one of her fellow Toreadors. She made a point to focus on what she was good at. She was a social dynamo. She made a point to go get a whole bunch of physical dynamos into a room where they would generally believe her word, where she was lying directly, but that they would aggress against this person and take them out. The person won just enough majesty, so not the whole room was against him. The person won just enough to kind of edge past the line and create doubt in the scenario. The moment that failure occurred, you're looking at a massive push down of that person's status, and their specialty is heavily weakened. Now, that's a social scenario, but just as much of the physical. If you aggress against someone physically and they survive, you're going to get ambushed. Your havens are going to get burnt down. So plan ahead, make sure you're going to win from the start. Now 2, you may kill anyone. You may be the greatest guy ever. You may be able to be the greatest social dynamo. You can do whatever, and you can take out anyone you want. Getting rid of them is not the most important thing. Not getting caught is the most important thing. Because I could go over and I can assassinate someone right in Elysium. I'm going to be the next on the chopping block. Socially, I can massively politic to get a guy removed from the city. All of his friends are now going to be aggressing against me. I could mentally dominate someone to believe that they've done some major crimes and they're going to get caught. If someone pulls up that dominate, I'm going to now be seen as the one who has broken the masquerade. Now, the best way to not get caught is the next one. Blame other people. Whether it's the target of your thing, dominate him so he thinks he met with the Sabbat, and he comes and is like, oh my god, I met with the Sabbat, I've been such a bad guy, help me out. Or you convince the prince to do it, or you convince the bullies to go kill the other people. End of the day, you don't want to be the obvious choice as the guilty party. Now, have other people do it. If you can have other people attack someone for you, that's great. But even if you can't, blaming other people is just saying other people did it. It's way, 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 way better if you can actually have other people do the work for you. A classic example is Archon Bay killing his Justicar. He knew he absolutely could kill him. That would not be a problem. But he would go down if he did the actual strike. So convincing everyone else to do it allowed that scenario where he could walk away completely scot-free. And the last one is make sure they're already hated. Because if all your rules, all your concept, everything goes up, you got to make sure at the end of the day, people are like, well, yeah, you tried to assassinate that guy, but nobody likes him, so who cares? So emphasize that other people think the way you do if something goes wrong. Now, how do I beat X? This is a big question a lot of people ask. How do you beat a werewolf? Werewolves physically are going to constantly best vampires all the time. Through Umbra Hop, through Rage Healing, through everything else, you're not going to best a werewolf consistently. And they're always running groups. What you can do is social and mental. Presence, demontate, and dominate are going to just wreck werewolves constantly. And dominating a werewolf to attack his own buddies is a really quick, easy way to minimize a situation that was going to be absolutely terrible into something that you actually have a real good chance on. Now, hunters. Most people think that hunters are physically based. Most hunters actually have to be mentally based and then physically second. Because they have to be smart enough to burn down people's havens. They have to be smart enough to track people down. When you really get them face to face, the fact that you're going to be able to spend blood for traits, the fact that you're going to be able to keep healing and they can't, lets physical still be a viable choice. Now, a little bit of entrancement, it goes a long way. Really, mental is the hardest thing to go against hunters because true faith might have resistances, they might have some iron will. At the end of the day, all you're going to get is a go to sleep or get out of here. Even shooting the guy next to him, you're going to be better at it. So really, against hunters, focus physical and social. Now, wraiths. It's kind of obvious. You can't touch the wraith. So you have to think about it in other ways. There's always going to be a reason a wraith is aggressing against you. Either they were paid to, or you're dealing with something in their world, like a fetter or something that they care about. Spending the mental time to learn how to do that is going to be really important. And spending the social time to chat up the people who do have the powers to aggress against wraiths is going to be your thing. Having those, there's no game where there's going to be wraiths where there's not going to be someone out there with necromancy. And making sure you become allies with those people are going to really reduce the conflicts you have. Now, Q-Gen. There's a lot of people who feel Q-Gen are unbeatable. And it's absolutely untrue. The problem with Q-Gen are they're incredibly good for 4 to 5 rounds. And people don't feel they can live those 4 to 5 rounds, or they feel at 4 to 5 rounds, a smart Q-Gen will leave. And they will. So what you need to do is you need to be pre-prepared. If you have guys with a whole bunch of shotguns, you know what? If they're spending turns constantly getting up, they're not going to be spending turns trying to enter the Umbra. If they have their tons and tons of steps from Black Wind, you're going to want to knock them down with a shotgun. Or you're going to want to blow them away with some type of thing. They have so much worse healing than Western vampires. You cause 5 to 6 damage to them in a few rounds, they have to flee or they're dead. You're not going to have a Cathayan heal more than probably 6 to 10 damage in the entirety of the combat, while you're going to have, even neonates are going to be healing 6 to 8 normal damage. So the most powerful Cathayans are still not going to really be able to push out what you're going to need. And the fact that they constantly have to be spending their stuff for powers, they're not going to be spending it on blood. Now the next one is mental. Dominating Cathayans is quick, easy, and powerful. Aggress against that guy. Hit the road. Drop all your great magic stuff. Answer my questions. Be respectful. A little bit of Dominate is incredibly powerful with Cathayans. Now, this is about the time where I want to make sure I opened up anyone to ask any questions. I can give further examples. If anyone has anything like that, I'll give it a few seconds for people to chat in. And with a 16-second delay, I understand it's a little hard for people to kick over. I could talk a little bit about some personal experiences that I've had. I've been ambushed plenty of times by groups of people. And that exciting moment where your PvP is active and you're connected, it's kind of what some people are playing for. And we're not playing to kill PCs, we're playing for that excitement. Now, someone brought up right now that Elder Auspex is pretty nuts too. Now, there's two reasons why Elder Auspex is pretty nuts. Clairvoyance alone makes it that people really can't ever hide from you. You'll know where everyone's spending their night, and you're going to be able to easily spend influence actions to burn their havens. But if that's not even good enough, you're able to have a line of sight take down mental where you're just grinding people away. That if you're an elder with psychic assault, you just stand in a football field, packs of Sabbat could be coming at you. You're going to be knocking them down before they get within 10 yards. So it allows you to really almost have that immunity of long-distance attacks. Now, learning out-of-clan disciplines. Does Pillars of Salt allow you to learn out-of-clan disciplines from either an NPC found in a downtime or from a mentor? Or must it be another PC in-game? Okay, so first, you can spend a certain number of downtimes as determined by a storytelling staff to attempt to find a person to teach you a discipline. Obviously, trying to find Fortitude is going to be a lot easier than trying to find Malpalmony or even something even crazier. So, doing it through the downtime method is absolutely possible, and it's going to be kind of an experience that you'll be going through, and normally it's a story. A story should not be an absolute dead end. The worst case scenario, if you're asking for something completely outlandish, like, oh, I want to find Order of Malok Belai who's going to teach me Demonian, they should at least curve you to give you some lore and give you something. Now, NPCs, or through a mentor. Now, mentors have different traits when you buy them. And one of the traits, I actually don't have a web page connected right now to this, but I can read you the trait. Allows you to have them have rare disciplines. So backgrounds, and we are going to go with mentor. So on the mentor, there is a particular one called Master of Powers. And the phrase is that they know one rare power you can learn per time this is taken. This allows you to say, I want a mentor that is a master of Melpalmony or Temporis or some other type of connective. And that's essentially the avenue you'll go. Or if there's incredibly rare, let's say Pillars of Salt only techniques, that would be the essential background to let you have access to those. Now let's go back to the questions. Lastly, it does not have to be another PC, but a PC, teaching from a PC is always going to be the easiest because that is a personal interaction. You've convinced that person's kind of come back and forth, you should kind of be fine. One of the things that I'm really kind of befuddled by when I hear about other LARP organizations is they have a massive problem of incredibly rare disciplines out there. It's like, oh, well, you know, everyone has Mythosyria, and everyone has some other crazy discipline. And when you read the actual basics of the rules, no one can teach an out-of-clan bloodline discipline other than a person who is that bloodline. So, if you want Mythosyria, you must have drank from a Casid. You must have learned from an actual NPC or PC Casid. And when you have it, you can never pass it on. That person is unable to learn powers that you don't have some kind of connective to it. And most games should be limiting that. You can maybe take some at the start of game by some kind of conversation of, I want to start, let's say, with a level up Tenebrate to show that I was embraced before the nature of sex. That'd be great. But you really should be thinking about the disciplines that you actually have on your sheet and things you can learn from your other friends. Okay. I have a fight question. Is there a field of radius that one should force a physical challenge? Now, the rule of thumb should be that if you're within 3 steps to touch someone, at that time you can initiate a physical challenge. If you're on the other side of the room and you want to punch someone, they easily can say, you're not getting here by the end of the challenge. So as long as you have a complex action left and you can actually be within arm's reach of the person, and I know the person who's asking it is a particularly tall person like I am, and our arm's reach is much farther than someone else, but that's one of those out of character, in character things. If you can reasonably touch the person in your 3 steps is about the time you want to do a physical challenge. Now, Crowbar 0, is it still true for Caitiff, or that merit allows for additional out-of-clan discipline? Okay, so the Caitiff merit allows crazy disciplines, but all of the crazy disciplines they allow are clans. They allow you to have Serpentis, they allow you to have Quietus, they allow you to have all these other things, but they're not bloodlines. They're all clan-based disciplines. And actually, let's kind of hop to it, because I remember even when I was reading it last time, there's even another caveat. So I don't want us to kind of miss that. So let me hop over to the book. Here, that's Nosferatu, that's Tremere, Caitiff. Now, Vestige of Greatness. You can choose, normally, Auspex, Celerity, Dominate, Fortitude, Obfuscate, Presence, Potence. Now, if you have this, one of them can be Dementation, Protean, Serpentis, Quietus, Obtenebrate, Vicissitude, or Semistry. Now, it does say it's in clan, so you should be able to actually teach it, but you're still only teaching clan disciplines. And clan disciplines, they're nice. I'm not knocking them, but they're not Vestrica, Temporis, Demoinian. The bloodline disciplines are so overwhelmingly stronger and downright just cheesy. They make a point to limit them that Caitiffs actually can't have that. And Vestige of Greatness, by the way, in Pillars of Salt, we also allow you to take the Discipline of the Stone Man, which is Kineticism from the Caitiff Handbook. And that's like their one little toy for taking that 3-point merit. Now, just for time, because we're going to be at about 1 hour right now, we're going to do this last question from Harry. Sorry, what I meant is I had a scene where someone wedged themselves between me and my target and touched me. Should that have been a challenge? Oh, and Sad Fog to Say says Caitiff can't teach disciplines clan flaw. So even still, even if you gave them these great disciplines, they can't handle them. Even better. Now, if a person can step between you, well, let me reread it again just to make sure that everyone's there. What I meant is, I had a scene where someone wedged themselves between me and my target and touched me. Should that have been a physical challenge? Now, The nature of the touch not being a physical aggression, if they weren't like using quietus to touch you, or any power use, should be a physical challenge. If they're just doing something to kind of stand in the way and they're not doing a physical challenge, theoretically they can do that just with steps. You can try to walk around with steps. That's all still a step scenario. The moment you say, I am going to still push my way through, you're now in a physical challenge scenario. And some people might feel that that's a great athletics moment where you can kind of dive around. But really, if someone's moving in with their steps, you can choose to still aggress against the other person as long as they're within arm's reach. Ideally, in a perfect mechanic world, what would actually happen is the other person would declare to be supporting the person in their challenges as a defender through the mass combat rules. But in a role-playing scenario, when people are kind of moving around, there's nothing illegal in the rules of I spend my 3 steps to stand in front while they take 3 steps to back up. Now, I really hope that this has been helpful and educational, and I really like the idea that we are able to have the book here, and we're able to have players bring up all the stuff, because there is so much that kind of occurs with all the different mechanics and all the different things. Having 50 thoughts is better than one. Can't be right at everything all the time. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Our next one is going to be announced fairly soon. And make sure that on the post, if you're a Pillars player, that you put down your real name. And we will make sure that you get some kind of bonus for that. We will then make a point to post this for everyone else to have. And whether you're in Pillars or not, best of luck trying to take down your enemies. Have a great day. Bye-bye.